Yeah.
Now, how about both Iran and Israel? Because that's another area we don't talk much about. Israel, most people believe, has in the account in the neighborhood of 90 nuclear
Yeah.
bombs. And we know very little about what they have and what they can, which is danger by itself. But Israel, I have no doubt that they wouldn't think twice if they feel like, oh, now we need to use it. And in terms of Iran, even though we can say they don't have one, but many people also believe they can quickly put together one. So that's another thing. What is your view on that?
I think that is exactly correct. I think, again, we have a country in Israel which is addicted to gambling.
Yeah. Yeah.
Again, they've been gambling basically for 70, whatever it is, years that the state of Israel has been in existence. The gambles have generally come off. It's getting harder for them. Like a gambler who's been successful in the past, but who's now seeing their luck turn, their instinct is to double down and triple down and gamble even more recklessly. And we see that. So they're now starting wars in Gaza. We've discussed that in many programs. They've now extended that war to Lebanon, where
Mhm.
they're attacking all the time and killing people. And as far as I can see, achieving nothing. They're killing lots of the leaders of Hezbollah, but we can see that Hezbollah continues fighting. They're now talking about attacking Iran, even though Iran has shown that it has a capability to attack Israel. And always, if you read the Israeli media, which I do, and
Mhm.
I can only read, by the way, the English language Israeli media, which I understand is much more careful in its language than the Hebrew language Israeli media, where the Israelis set out their real ideas and their actual thinking. Well, even the English language media, you see apocalyptic thinking, preparations for doing the most extreme things, a, a dehumanization of their opponents, who they clearly are prepared to kill in colossal numbers, and frankly, a readiness, exactly as you said, to use nuclear weapons. I mean, the whole behavior of Israel over the last year shows that they would have no moral inhibitions about using nuclear weapons. So, Iran, which is the ultimate objective, what are they saying to themselves? They say we have a country that is out of control and incredibly dangerous, and we have to take precautions. If the Israelis are coming for us, then we must be prepared to protect ourselves. And how do we do that? By acquiring a nuclear weapons capability. What choice have we got?
Yep. And of course, North Korea also has
Yeah.
nuclear weapons, and they also have long range ballistic missiles, right? So I mean, that's
Well,
another
can I just say, because again it was the same, right up until the 1990s. We now know North Korea had no plans to acquire nuclear weapons. You could find all of this set out now. It's academically archived and established. There were lots of rumors before the 1990s that North Korea was working to nuclear weapons. Wasn't true. And they came to this deal with the Americans, as they thought in the 1990s that they were not going to dismantle various nuclear facilities, and the Americans were going to provide them with water cooled reactors and all
Mhm.
kinds of things like this. The Americans go back on all of those promises. They start working towards achieving regime change in North Korea. The country is constantly threatened with military exercises and all of those things. And what does it do? It goes against the wishes of its most important ally, China,
Mhm.
which isn't happy about this at
No,
all.
no.
And
Mhm.
it acquires nuclear weapons because it is forced to do so. I remember the time, the tensions between North Korea and China that existed at that time. Because the Chinese weren't happy about this at all. But ultimately, it was American provocations that drove the whole thing. And it's the same with Iran. Nobody in their senses should want to see Iran acquire nuclear weapons, but they're being pushed in that direction against their wishes. I'm convinced of it. and the wishes of all their friends.
We're saying, look at what happened to Saddam Hussein, look at Muammar
Yeah,
Gaddafi, right? When the United
yeah,
States claim that you have a weapon of mass destruction, you better have it.
mm,
that, that's the conclusion.
yeah.
And I also want to ask you, actually, I always have this question. So conventional weapons, United States has a lot of advantage, way ahead of everybody else. Now, if that's the case, isn't it serve the best interest of United States that nobody has nuclear weapons? Isn't that so?
You're again, if I can say, being very Chinese. You're looking at the situation and you're looking at this factually. I've come to the conclusion long ago that the Americans never think in that fashion. I mean, they never make those sort of calculations. Um, Basically, their instinctive attitude is that they should have more conventional weapons than everyone else, obviously, but
Uh-huh.
also more nuclear weapons than everybody else, that they should pile on nuclear weapons one on top of the other and overwhelm everybody and push everybody around. And the one thing Americans never, ever, ever do is ask themselves the question, what does the side actually think?
Yeah.
What are their concerns? What are their worries? That is something that you read article after article in the US. They never really address that.
Yeah. But logically, I would think that's the conclusion, right? When you have way ahead of everybody else conventional weapons,
Mhm.
you would want the whole world. Nobody has
Well,
nuclear weapons,
exactly.
right?
Well,
That
exactly.
yeah.
Well,
But
exactly. I mean, but if you look at, I mean, again, I read when I was years ago a lot of Chinese philosophy, Kung Fu Tzu, Lao Tzu. You'd see all of this. You'd see that
yeah.
logical thinking there is there, which it is, by the way, especially. And but of course, Americans, they beat to a completely different drum, and this is something which I think a lot of countries around the world I find very difficult. I mean, the Russians have this this word that they use about the Americans. I don't know the Russian word, but I know what the translation is, that the Americans are agreement incapable, that they cannot agree because they
Uh-huh.
cannot understand
Mhm.
that the other side has a right to its point of view, and they also never feel bound by the word they have given.
The Middle East. Now, whenever you need to go, just let me know. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, the Middle East. Now, Yahya Sinwar
Mm,
says. First of all, I think it's a big mistake that they released this footage.
yeah.
Even the Guardian this morning, I read it says why Sinwar warrior death will win him martyr status in Gaza and beyond. It's
Mhm.
true. It's
Yeah.
definitely,
Yeah.
in China, netizens think he's a hero. He died fighting to his last breath for his people, for his country. I mean, people believe that.
Mm.
Um, but anyway, so now what's next? Seems to me Israel is now cutting all the humanitarian aid to Gaza. Are they going to starve everybody to death? Is that next?
Yes, I think that's exactly where we're moving. I think step by step, Israel is moving towards, frankly, apocalyptic and genocidal positions. Now, can I just say, I completely agree with you about the mistake the Israelis made in releasing the film of Sinwar's death. I think it was a terrible mistake. And I again, it demonstrates how completely blinded by anger the Israelis have become, that they should make a basic and simple mistake like that.
Yeah.
But anyway, there we are. Um,
Mhm.
Many people have made the point that the Israelis have built up Sinwar into this monstrous ogre figure. They've managed to kill him
Mhm.
in the circumstances they've shown us, but at least they have killed him. This is their opportunity to call a stop, to say we've accomplished our mission in Gaza. Let's now try and get out of the hole we're in and try and have ceasefires in Gaza and South Lebanon and with Iran and try and bring this terrible situation, which is bad for us, to an end. Instead, they become, I could just say it, I mean, they become bloodthirsty to a degree that is just incredible. There doesn't seem to be any slaking of their appetite for violence. And they're just pressing on. So they're escalating in every direction that they can. They're becoming incredibly dangerously overextended, and they're drifting towards a war with Iran. And I get the sense that the Iranians themselves have come to the conclusion that a war between themselves and Israel is now inevitable.
Yeah, and I also find that Israel doesn't seem thinking when they do these kind of things.
No.
I guess they were very happy they killed him, and then they forgot. Actually, they made a lot of lies about the Hamas leaders in the beginning after October happened. They
No.
said the Hamas leaders, at one point, they said they were all in Qatar high-end hotel, remotely controlling what's going on in Gaza. And then they said, oh, these people, they always hide among the civilians, and they are hiding deep in the tunnel. None of them were true when you
No.
release the footage. They forgot
No.
they made those lies, right?
I know. Exactly.
They,
Exactly right.
lots of people pointed that out in the, it's a lot
Yeah.
of discussion in the Chinese
Yeah.
social
Oh,
media.
it's interesting that people are saying that, but
Yeah,
but it's true. It is
yeah,
absolutely true. So I mean, they're drifting into. I mean, I've never seen anything like this before. I mean, it's, as I said, it's a kind of bloodlust.
yeah.
I'm sorry to use this language. I don't like to use this language about a country and a nation, but certainly it seems to be true about the leaders of Israel and the Israeli
Mhm.
government. They become, as I say, blinded by their hatred, and their violence is just escalating. And nobody seems to be able to restrain them or to talk sense to them. And of course, I get the sense the Americans aren't even seriously trying.
Yeah, then I guess if they are going to starve everybody to death, we would just, the rest of the world, it would just watching it live, I guess.
Well,
It,
indeed, and
it,
and what a catastrophe that will be.
yeah.
Obviously, first and foremost, for those poor people who starved to death, but ultimately for the people of Israel who will have to carry the weight of this crime forever.
Yeah. And then the United States would totally be discredited if United States lets that
Absolutely,
happen. Yeah,
absolutely.
it's